My mother said it while refilling her wine glass, like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. We need you to plan the rehearsal dinner for your brother's engagement party. You're good at spreadsheets. Make yourself useful for once. I was sitting across from her at the kitchen table where I'd grown up doing homework while my brother watched TV in the living room. The same table where, at 17, I handed my father an envelope every 2 weeks containing exactly half my paycheck from the grocery store. They called it chipping in. I called it the first job I ever had that paid nothing. My brother, across from me now, scrolled through his phone without looking up. He was 29, wearing a watch I knew cost more than my monthly rent, and he hadn't once asked how I was doing since I'd walked through the door 40 minutes ago. I have a job, I said. I'm actually in the middle of a project right now. This is family, my mother said, finally setting down her glass. Your brother's engagement is a once-in-a-lifetime event, so is mine, I said. Remember? August 12th? My brother looked up from his phone then, not with guilt, with mild irritation, the way you look at a fly that won't leave the room. About that, he said. Those 2 words I should have known. He and his fiancée had chosen the same date, not close to it, not the weekend before or after, the exact same day, August 12th. He said it like he was telling me the weather, like it was a scheduling conflict between 2 dentist appointments and not 2 weddings in the same family. Our parents had already booked their flights to his venue in Scottsdale, non-refundable. My mother reached across the table and touched my hand. You understand, don't you? The Hargrove side of the family is flying in from 4 states. It was the only date that worked. You could move yours to September. I had signed a venue contract 6 months before my brother had even proposed. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I picked up my purse, said I needed some air, and walked out through the back door. I sat in my car in their driveway for 4 minutes. I didn't cry, I thought. Have you ever been in a moment where everything that's ever been done to you suddenly arranges itself into a very clear picture? Tell me in the comments. I read all of them. My name is Maya. I'm 31 years old. I work as a forensic financial analyst for a regional consulting firm, which is a complicated way of saying that corporations hire me to find the money that's gone missing and identify the person who moved it. I have a gift for patterns. Numbers don't lie. People do, but their numbers always eventually tell the truth. I mention this because it matters. It matters a great deal. Growing up, I was the responsible one. Not in the way parents brag about at dinner parties. In the way that means nobody worries about you, because you've never given them a reason to, so they redirect all their energy toward the one who keeps generating emergencies. My brother was an emergency generator from the time he was 15. Car accidents, dropped classes, a business venture at 22 that my parents funded to the tune of $18,000, and that lasted 11 months before dissolving into nothing. My mother kept the framed logo he'd had designed on the wall of the hallway for 2 years afterward. She never put up anything I'd done. When I got my certification, my father said, "That's good. Stable work." When my brother landed a sales director role at a mid-sized commercial real estate firm called Grayfield Partners, my parents took him to dinner at a steakhouse and my mother cried happy tears at the table. I paid off my student loans at 28. Nobody took me to dinner, but nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what came next. 3 days after the kitchen table conversation, I was at my desk when my phone buzzed. My brother. No greeting, no context. Can you call the florist and confirm the centerpiece order for the engagement party? Camille gave them the wrong card number. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I put my phone face down and went back to work. He called that evening. I answered because I thought something might actually be wrong. "Did you get my text?" he said. "I did. So why didn't you handle it?" I set my pen down very carefully. "Because it's not my engagement party, Maya." He said my name the way our father used to say it when I was a kid and had done something disappointing. Patient, slightly bored. Camille's is overwhelmed. The invitations alone took 3 weeks. You don't have anything going on right now that's more important than helping the family. I'm planning my own wedding, I said. To a contractor. A pause, brief and loaded. Look, I'm not trying to be harsh, but you need to be realistic about where your priorities should be. This engagement party is going to have people from Grayfield there. My boss is coming. His wife is coming. This is a career moment for me and I need someone I trust to manage the details. Hire a coordinator, I said. We're already over budget. How much over? He told me. The number was significant enough that I did the mental calculation automatically, the way I always do. Engagement party, then wedding, on top of the new car he'd mentioned last month, factoring in his stated salary, which I happened to know, because he had once complained about it loudly at a family dinner. The math was uncomfortable. "Where's the money coming from?" I asked. "Mom and Dad are helping out. How much are they helping?" "Maya, that's not how much." He hung up. I pulled out my laptop. I have a habit when something doesn't add up of checking the things that are publicly available. Property records, liens, court filings. It takes about 20 minutes and it tells you more about a person's financial situation than they would ever willingly share at a dinner table. My parents' house had a new second mortgage on it, filed 8 weeks ago. The amount was substantial, more than I'd expected, and this was on top of a home they'd almost finished paying off after 30 years. I sat with that for a long time. They had refinanced a paid-off house to fund my brother's life, and my mother had told me, the last time I asked how they were doing financially, that things were tight but fine. I thought about the contractor comment. I thought about the engagement party text. I thought about August 12th. My partner, whose name is Griffin, was at his own desk across the room working on bid documents. Griffin is a licensed general contractor who, over the past 4 years, has quietly built a portfolio of commercial renovation projects that most people in our social circle don't know about because Griffin doesn't talk about money. He talks about work. There is a difference. I looked at him for a moment. "You know that property management company you've been in talks with?" I asked. "Albrecht Group? The one that owns the Meridian Hall complex?" "Ja." He looked up. "What about it? Is that deal still moving?" He looked at me for a moment. "We're signing Thursday." Meridian Hall was a venue complex on the north side of the city. 3 separate event spaces, a catering kitchen, outdoor pavilion. It had been under new management acquisition for several months. My brother had booked his wedding reception at Meridian Hall. I didn't say anything. I just nodded and went back to my laptop. Griffin asked if I was okay. "I'm working on it," I said. "I want to explain something before I go further. What I did next wasn't impulsive. I don't operate impulsively. It was also not planned in the way people imagine revenge is planned, with a whiteboard and a countdown. It was more like watching a set of conditions arrange themselves and making a professional decision about what to do with the information I already had access to. My firm had been contracted 6 weeks earlier by the board of Grayfield Partners to conduct an internal financial review of their sales division. A routine engagement, the kind that happens when a company is preparing for a growth audit or an investor presentation and wants clean books before outside eyes arrive. My name wasn't on any public-facing documents. I was listed in the engagement files under my professional credentials and my firm's name, not my personal name. I had signed a confidentiality agreement, as had everyone on both sides. My brother had no idea I existed in his professional world. I want to be precise here. I did not access anything I was not already authorized to access. I did not use my personal connection to him to target him. The work I was contracted to do was the work I did. What changed was that I stopped skimming past the sales division anomalies I'd been noting in the margins and started pulling the thread. It unraveled fast. My brother had been at Grayfield for 3 years. His numbers were exceptional, the kind that get you promoted and get your parents crying into steak dinners. Quarter-over-quarter growth in a division that had been flat for years before he arrived. His client list was long and his close rate was almost implausible. I pulled the client list and started running cross-checks. Basic stuff: Secretary of State databases, business registration records, registered agent filings. The third name on his top 10 client list was a company called Deltavant Solutions. I searched the registration, dissolved 14 months ago. The address on file was a mailbox service in Phoenix. The sixth name was a firm called Callaway Meridian Group. The listed phone number was disconnected. The website domain had expired. I kept going. By the time I finished, 4 of his top 10 clients were either dissolved, non-operational, or could not be verified as existing entities. The invoices attached to those accounts were real. The payments were real. The clients were not. I followed the money. The payments to the ghost clients were coming from Grayfield's vendor development budget, a discretionary fund used to pay for business cultivation expenses. Someone had been creating vendor entries, approving payments to those entries, and routing the funds outward. The receiving accounts were tied to an LLC registered in Nevada 18 months ago. I ran the registered agent for the Nevada LLC. It was a law firm that specialized in anonymous business formations. Dead end on that front. But the bank routing number attached to the LLC's payment records looked familiar in the way numbers sometimes do when you've been staring at financial documents long enough. I'd seen a routing number format like that recently. I went back through my brother's expense reports, which I had access to as part of the engagement. He had submitted a reimbursement for a business dinner 14 months ago, paid on a personal card. The bank routing number on the reimbursement form matched the primary routing for the Nevada LLC's account. He wasn't hiding the money far. He'd been pulling it toward himself in a straight line. The total, across 31 months, was just over $380,000. I sat back. The air in the conference room felt different, thinner. This wasn't a filing error. This wasn't creative accounting. This was wire fraud, structuring, and if the ghost clients had been used in any external-facing investor documentation, which I had reasonable cause to believe they had, that was securities fraud as well. I found the email 2 days later. He had used his work account, which I had read access to under the engagement terms. It was addressed to a college friend, and in it he described the Grayfield situation as essentially a self-funded bonus program. He mentioned that the board was old and checked out, and that he planned to have the trail cleaned up before his 5-year review. He mentioned, almost as an aside, that his parents had taken out a loan against their house for the wedding, and that it was honestly kind of perfect timing, because having a big event would make him look stable and established while the dust settled. He called their financial sacrifice perfect timing for his cover story. I printed the email. I printed 37 pages of supporting documentation, bank records, routing confirmations, invoice comparisons, entity registrations, the email chain. I organized them into a binder and placed the binder in a large envelope. I addressed it to the board of Grayfield Partners and their legal counsel. Then I wrote a second copy addressed to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. Because $380,000 over state lines is a federal matter, and I have professional obligations that exist independent of my feelings about anyone. I also called Griffin. The Meridian Hall signing, I said. Is there a standard conduct clause in the event contracts? He thought for a moment. Boilerplate. Any criminal charges or indictment voids the booking and forfeits the deposit. What's the deposit on the booking my brother made? A pause. I heard him pull something up. $985,000. Okay, I said. Maya. His voice was careful. What's happening? I'm doing my job, I said. I'll explain tonight. I did explain. We sat at our kitchen table and I laid out everything I'd found, all the documentation, all the routing numbers, all the ghost companies. Griffin is not a man who reacts to things quickly or dramatically. He listened to all of it, looked at the pages I'd organized, and was quiet for a moment. What are you going to do? He asked. Submit the findings to the board and to federal authorities. That's what I'm contracted to do. That's what I'm ethically required to do. And the deposit? That's a contract matter between Grayfield's involved parties and your venue. I don't control what the contract says. He nodded slowly. Your family is going to be devastated. My family refinanced their paid-off house, I said, so my brother could use the goodwill as cover while he stole from his employer. They deserve to know who they did that for. Griffin reached across the table and took my hand. He didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. The engagement party was on a Saturday evening at a restaurant my sister-in-law's family had rented out. I went. Griffin and I got dressed, drove over, and walked in like everything was fine, because, professionally, at that moment it still was. The report hadn't been submitted yet. I had scheduled the submission for the following Monday, giving the board time to convene before taking any action. My brother was working the room in the way he always did, hand on shoulders, loud laugh, the kind of ease that comes from never having worried about being liked. His fiancée was lovely, genuinely warm and excited, and I felt a specific sadness for her that had nothing to do with the rest of it. My mother found me by the appetizer table. You came, she said, and the surprise in her voice was a small wound. Of course I came, I said. She told me I looked tired. She told me I should think about whether August 12th really needed to be the date. That September was beautiful too, and Griffin probably didn't have strong feelings about it. She said all of this while reaching past me for a bruschetta. My brother appeared at her side. He looked at me, then at Griffin, and something behind his eyes decided to be magnanimous. He clapped Griffin on the shoulder. "Good to see you, man. How's the contracting business growing?" Griffin said pleasantly. "Good, good, that's good." He turned to scan the room. "Hey, did I tell you guys that Meridian Hall is doing our reception? Incredible space. We got lucky, they had a cancellation and we jumped on it." He said this to the room as much as to us. I smiled. "Congratulations," I said. Monday morning, I submitted the report. By Wednesday, Grayfield's legal team had contacted federal investigators. By Thursday afternoon, my brother had been placed on administrative suspension pending an internal investigation. By the following Monday, he had been formally terminated, and federal agents had executed a search warrant at his home. I was not in any of those rooms. I didn't need to be. The engagement party venue called Griffin's management company the Thursday after the warrant. They had seen the news reports. They cited the conduct clause in the Meridian Hall contract. The $95,000 deposit was non-refundable under those terms. My parents called me that Thursday evening. My mother was crying. My father's voice had a quality I had never heard before, something between fury and collapse. They said I had destroyed the family. They said I had done this on purpose, that I had targeted my brother, that I had used my job as a weapon. I let them finish. Then I said, "He embezzled $380,000 from his employer over nearly 3 years. I found it because I was hired to find it. That's what I do. I didn't place the money in those accounts. I didn't create the fake companies. I didn't write the email where he called your mortgage on the house his perfect cover story." Silence. "He called it that," I said, "your sacrifice. He called it perfect timing for himself." My mother started crying harder. I told them I loved them. I told them I was sorry for the pain they were in, and I meant it, because watching your parents realize they have been used by someone they loved unconditionally is genuinely one of the hardest things I have ever witnessed. Even from a distance, even after everything, I also did not apologize for doing my job. My brother was charged with wire fraud, structuring, and one count related to fraudulent business filings. He accepted a plea agreement. Sentencing is scheduled for next spring. His fiancée ended the engagement 2 weeks after the arrest, which I think was the right decision for her, though I hope she landed somewhere kind. My parents lost the $95,000 deposit. The second mortgage on their house remains. They are working through it. We are not close right now, but we are in contact, which is more than I expected 6 months ago. Griffin and I got married on August 12th. It was a Saturday with low humidity, which in our city is something close to a miracle. 43 people were there. My grandmother danced. There was a moment late in the evening when Griffin and I were standing outside by ourselves for about 3 minutes while the reception continued inside, and he looked at me and said, "You okay?" I thought about the kitchen table, the wine glass, the 2 words my brother had said before telling me about the date. I thought about the second mortgage and the routing numbers and the email where my brother called our parents' financial ruin his perfect timing. I thought about 31 months of $380,000. "Yeah," I said, "I'm good." And I meant that too. The venue was ours. Griffin's company had finalized the Meridian Hall acquisition 2 weeks before the wedding, which meant that when my parents had assumed my brother was getting married in a space they could only dream of affording, they were actually guests in a building my husband owned. We didn't announce it. We didn't need to. Some things don't require a speech. They just require you to still be standing at the end.